Hello, everyone. My name is Bret Primack, aka the Jazz Video Guy. I'm down here in Guanajuato, Mexico. Pardon me. Some pizza went down the wrong way. Let me drink some liquid to see if I can alleviate that. Okay, I want to welcome you. I want to welcome our friends from YouTube and Facebook. And today I'm going to have a chat with my friend Dave Frick. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the Jazz Video Guide channel for the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, you've seen a number of Dave Frank videos on my channel, both as a performer, as an educator. And I guess for at least 11 years, Dave has been posting master classes on YouTube. He has 60 plus master classes, and he also posts his performances, and he also does online teaching via Skype. And Dave has a new project called the Dave Frank School of Jazz Online. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's bring him in from Peekskill, New York. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Brett, what's happening, man?
Hello, Dave. How are you? How are things in Peekskill?
Everything's beautiful here, man. How are you doing in Mexico?
We're doing great here. This is, as I mentioned 1,000 times, a wonderful place. Before we talk about your current project, a little bit about your background for people who don't know.
Sure.
Uh, you started as a pianist very young, and you studied with Lenny Tristano, one of
Right.
the great uh, players and theorists in jazz. And how did you happen to study with Lenny, and what was that experience like?
I was going to a summer school of Berklee in 1971. And I was aware of Lenny because I had read a book called Jazz Masters of the 50s. And this was like a high school. We had a semester, I was able to go to Berklee for a semester in the summer. And I was in the Berklee Library, and there was a lady sitting across from me where I was sitting at a desk. And I looked, and she had the record, the new Tristano, uh, and she said she found it in a record bin somewhere for like $1. And I was blown away because I knew all about Lenny. And so I started talking to this lady, and I said, "Well, geez, I'm looking for a teacher, and I see you have Lenny's record there. That's amazing. He's one of the great pianists in history." She said she wrote a number on a piece of paper and gave it to me, and I said, "What is this?" And she said, "It's Lenny's phone number." So again, this was 1971. Lenny was living in Hollis, Queens. So I went down to the Berklee dorm, and I called Lenny. My age at this time was 15. So I called Lenny from the dorm at Berklee, and he answered the phone with "Hello," and I said, "Can I speak to Mr. Tristano?" I'm shaking basically in my boots, and he goes, "Call me Lenny." And then I said, "I need help," like that immediately, and he goes, "What kind of help do you need?" I said, "I need pianistic help." So this is like 5 minutes into the conversation. He goes, "This is what you do. When you get back from Berklee, you call me up and you'll come over to my house and I'll tell you how I'm going to rip you off and you can tell me to go fuck myself." That was the first conversation with Lenny at age 15. So I went to his house, and it was we met and had a like an introductory. He always met people before he took you on as a student, and so that was like a free introductory meeting. So we met and hit it off, and the next 7 years I saw him weekly in his studio in Queens, and it was just the greatest blessing I could ever hope for. At that time, he was about 52 or so. He died in 1978, and it was like going to, Picasso's house every week. And he had a wonderful scene of jazz students, people studying with him and playing. And so he would do lessons at his studio in Hollis, which was not too far from Manhattan. And you were immediately welcomed into a whole beautiful community of jazz musicians that were involved in the similar exploration. And so seeing him every week was just sublime. It was just amazing. He took on his students very seriously, and he gave everything to us. And many of us were just kids at that time. I was 15, and yeah, right. He, as most people know, he was blind, and he looked. He had a very distinctive look. He didn't have the brown. What is it? The iris or the something. The brown part in the eye. It wasn't there. Pupil. And instead of that, he had it was like a gooey mass of goo. It's looked a little bit like Lon Chaney, and so it was a lot. To be in the same room with him, especially at that age, it took a little getting used to, but we got used to it very quickly because he was the warmest, funniest, greatest teacher you can imagine. So Lenny was one of the first people to make a study out of jazz improvisation. And when you study with Lenny, he gave you a complete program of things, elements, and so subjects. So we always had technique exercises, which were very distinctive. We had a whole chordal theory library that he took us through of one hand and then two hand voices on the piano. We played tunes for him. We improvised, and then we always would sing with a solo. So one of Lenny's basic methods of teaching is when you sing with the Charlie Parker solo or Lester Young. He had certain particular guys that were on his pantheon of greats. That it would include Louis Armstrong and Lester Young, Roy Eldridge, Charlie Parker, of course, Charlie Christian he loved, and there were a bunch of others. Fats Navarro was one. And a primary way of learning from Lenny was to sing with solos, which is a specific exercise that he devised. And so a lesson would include all of these elements. First, it was kind of like a format that it could change at any time, but there was a general format. You came in, do your exercises technically, then you did your chord work, whatever you're doing, and then you played a tune, and then improvised, and then sang with a solo before you left. And so it was an amazing musical education. And he was just as generous and, a serious guy, serious teacher, the greatest sense of humor. You had to practice, but he was just very kind and generous. But if you didn't practice, he may not as be, or if you give him any bullshit on any level, he may not be as kind and generous. Let's put it that way. But we were so young. He just took us on like father figure, and it was just amazing to have that kind of upbringing.
And after studying with Lenny, when did you first get into teaching, and did you follow his method?
Yeah, I first started teaching when I was 16, which is 51 years ago. So I started teaching in high school and I think it was inspired by Lenny, definitely. And what I've done over the years is I definitely use some of Lenny's methods because some of his methods are some of the greatest approaches to becoming an artist and an improviser. So I think over the years, I took the things that I thought that everybody could benefit, Lenny type of stuff, and I used that, and then also developed my own materials as the years went on. There were some exercises that, it was a very rigorous thing studying with Lenny. He had certain exercises where you would only play, for example, scales with 2 fingers at a time. It could be the first and second, and then you'd have to do your scales in contrary motion with 2 fingers, and he would go through the whole hand using just 2 fingers, and then he would use 3 fingers, and then all kinds of crazy combinations of fingers, and then all kinds of different timings. So, we would do this for an hour at a stretch. I would play scales with 2 fingers, and later on he had me improvising with 1 finger. So the one particular exercise that he put me through was 1 finger. Where are we getting this? Here we go. Here's the thumb. So we'd start with the thumb in the right hand, and we'd improvise just with the thumb. It's like take a tune, like All the Things You Are, and improvise a whole chorus just with the thumb of the right hand. And then you went to the second finger in the right hand and just did it with that. And you went through the whole entire hand, 1 finger at a time, and then to the left hand. So finally, at the end of the exercise, he had me improvising with just the pinky of the left hand. And then you'd also move it up the metronome. So you'd be going at 40 on the metronome, which is like, like an Escher painting or a Salvador Dali painting. And you'd be improvising with 1 finger. So I don't do that with my students. So some of the methods were very exhaustive, but Lenny was one of the first guys to codify it as a system of learning, as a subject of learning. Before that, there was not so much of jazz teaching as a subject. Most people felt that you had to be born with it, or you'd learn it through osmosis, being around a jazz scene or around jazz musicians. But Lenny actually was able to dissect what were the different elements of the recipe that goes into being able to play jazz. So there's a technical element, there's a theoretical element, there's a feeling component, there's a rhythmic component. Lenny had an overview of the jazz improv process and was able to separate it out into the necessary things that you needed to learn in order to do it yourself. So it was a tremendous learning experience, and it was great fun, of course, hanging out with him every week. And you really felt that you were with as I said, like going to see Picasso every week or something like that. So some of Lenny's methods I continue, and some I don't. I maybe a little less exhaustive.
So I guess maybe 11 or 12 years ago, you started posting master classes online. You've got 60 plus master classes presently. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, there's a link in between there. So I studied with Lenny until his death in 1978. And then I started the New York School of Jazz in 1982 or 3, and with some other people. And in 1987, I started teaching at Berklee, as I was a professor in the piano department for 17 years at Berklee. And when I was when in Boston, I met and studied with Charlie Banacos, the great Charlie Banacos, for 20 years. I studied with Charlie for 20 years. And so the same thing, we'd go see him every week. And Charlie was another of the greatest educators with the most inclusive approach to everything. And that was another great experience. So in between doing the master classes, which are online now, and Lenny, I was fortunate enough to study with the great Charlie Banacos, the greatest guy. He knew everything about everything. He would teach from 5 in the morning until 1 in the morning. He would only eat as much as he could fit into these two fists every day. He was the funniest guy you ever met, and you'd go in to see him at 8 o'clock at night. He'd be teaching since 5 o'clock that morning because he did correspondent lessons, and his energy level would be through the roof. And Charlie was the master of detail and the master of knowing how to learn specific things. So typically you would go in to see Charlie and say, oh, I'd love to learn how to, play two-hand voicings, something like this on a piano. And then he would start to get into how you do that. And by the end of the lesson, you would always say to yourself, why did I ask that question? Because he would say, well, you got to do these 17 inversions and 14 keys for 7 hours. He once told me that I had to play one note for 8. I asked him a question. How do you get to control your touch? The great players had, like Bill and Keith, of course, and Chick, and these great classical pianists too, have this great control of touch and their sound production. So Charlie said, well, you have to play one note for 8 hours a day. And he said you have to do it with every different type of touch that you can imagine, but not going either up or down. It had to be random. So Charlie said you have to take one finger and play a note with a certain kind of a pressure or touch. And then the next time you played it, it had to be a different one, but it had to be totally different, random. So sometimes it would be a light touch to a really hard touch, to a medium touch, to a really hard touch. And he said, you have to do this for 8 hours a day. And I said, I won't do this for 8 hours a day. And he said, you don't understand. You have to do this for 8 hours a day. And I said, well, you don't understand. I'm not going to do this for 8 hours a day. So we agreed on 1 hour. So for about a year, I played one note for an hour a day. And Charlie, anything you wanted to learn, not only anything that you wanted to learn about music, anything that you want to learn about anything, Charlie knew it all. So I told him once I was living in near Boston in Medford, Mass. And I told him we had a mouse in our apartment. And he started going, well, there are 6 kinds of mouses. And he started all the different kinds of mouses and the different traps and all this kind of thing. So that was another amazing educational and personal experience. I have to credit Lenny and Charlie for being 2 of the greatest teachers you can imagine. So after I was doing that, the internet started coming in. It was when we were 10, 12 years ago when things started to explode technologically. And I just want, my interest has always been just to share the processes, share how do you do this thing. I mean, there's this incredible thing we can do as human beings, which is jazz improvisation. And I'm just gonna read something from a book, my book series here, The Joy of Improv, because I just want to kind of put it out there. Every human being has the potential to improvise music. Within you, an infinite stream of music can flow, as endless as an ocean and as individual as a fingerprint. The creative possibilities within even the simplest musical forms are limitless. These infinite possibilities exist at your fingertips, awaiting your discovery. The ability to improvise will open the door to a lifetime of creative fulfillment and artistic expression. And this is what my teachers were able to do for me. That the real, to me, and I think to most jazz musicians, the real extremely fantastic thing that jazz offers, and it doesn't have to be jazz, it can be improvisation, is the ability to improvise. So ultimately, Lenny and Charlie taught me how to realize and play the music that I was hearing in my head. So learning jazz improvisation is a process, and everybody can do it. I have never, in 50 years, I've never met anybody who couldn't learn to improvise. Some people, of course, have a great talent for some reason. Some people it takes a little bit longer. But my contention is that improvising is a natural human ability. It's just like birds fly through the air and they sing, and no one has taught them. Humans, we can improvise. You can open yourself to a flow of music that is infinite. Anytime you want to sit and create something to express your feelings or for any reason, all you have to do is as Bill Evans said, flip the switch, and all the flow of the music of the universe will flow through you. And with the training of jazz improvisation that I was lucky enough to get with these great masters, they were able to show me how to access that flow of music within and how to realize it. So Lenny always used to say that improvisation was just like an amplifier for your mind. So ultimately, whatever you hear can be transmitted through your fingers at the same moment you're hearing it. And every person can do this. It's just that it's a step-by-step process. That's not, it's, I wouldn't say it's difficult. I mean, it's just step-by-step. I mean, step-by-step, it's not particularly difficult. Of course, it's an endless study with infinite complication. But I've been able to work with folks for 50 years, and every single person has gotten it. And every single person loves it. And I'm very personally, very, very fortunate. And I realize what the teachers that I studied with when I was a kid, what they opened for me. And what they opened was just a lifetime of being able to improvise. And that's a wonderful gift. So that's what I want to pass on.
Well, you've been passing it on for a while now. After you posted the master classes, you started teaching on Skype. You have a global audience of students around the planet. Talk to us about what it's been like teaching on Skype.
Well, I have to credit a particular teacher of the internet marketing, whose name is Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm sure many of your listeners are aware of him. He's by no question, he's the top guy in the world who teaches how to use the social media to promote whatever it is you want to promote. And his original book was called Crush It. And I studied this book and I studied Gary's methods. And his basic idea was that if you feel from within that you have something to share with people, that you basically make a video and you get a YouTube channel, start posting videos, and then what's called the Crush It process is where you go places all over the internet where like-minded people hang out. So in the world of piano, there's a great piano site called Piano World. There's another one called Piano Street. But this has grown exponentially over the years. So there's thousands of Facebook groups, thousands of online meeting and watering holes for pianists or violinists or trumpeters or anything. And you simply invite people to watch your video. And the first step of using the internet for marketing is to make a lot of stuff available for free and to start to reach out with the things that you're passionate about sharing. So I did what Gary said, and I started to produce these master classes, and that was a great education. And I have now 59 or 60, as you said, on YouTube. They're all free. They're basically two kinds of classes. One is a class about a player or a style of music, like there's a Keith Jarrett class, Chick Corea class, Art Tatum class, Oscar Peterson class, that looks into the styles of playing. And then there are also classes about how to do things, like a walking bass line class. What's the process that you can engage that will get you to the point where you can improvise a walking bass line? And then, for example, once you can do that, how you start to integrate improvising a regular improv line in the right hand above that. So whatever it is that you want to learn as a aspiring jazz musician, there is a way to learn it step by step. It's a learnable subject, and that's my focus, and had been my focus studying with the great masters that I studied with, is to help people with the processes, how that they themselves, in a limited period of time, can learn to do all these fantastic things that we're able to do as jazz players. And working with students online has been an absolute joy. It's absolutely fun. It works incredibly well, especially for piano. I can speak for piano. I don't know, other instrumentalists maybe can speak for their instrument, but piano is such a visual instrument that it has to do with sight. So I can see somebody about to make a mistake before they do, or I can see somebody's guy from Zimbabwe, his dog coming in the room before he sees them. And it's a tremendous tool, and it has spread jazz amazingly. I mean, the last 10 years of growth, global growth of jazz, and it's due to places like Berklee, and it's due to people like Lennie, and it's due especially to the internet and all the great players and teachers and passionate people that are making their knowledge available online. The landscape for learning jazz has completely changed, and there's so much information you can find out in so many different places. But still, ultimately, I think if you want to become proficient at anything, you need to have a mentor who can guide you through parts of the process, because one size does not fit all. So what Lenny and Charlie did for me, I try to do for other people, and it's worked great online. And the interest, jazz, it's just so worldwide, and it's such a groove to do. Everyone wants to learn it, and the world for jazz is more and more open all the time. So I'm trying to contribute to that in my own way.
Well, you certainly have made a major contribution with your videos. The ability of students to be able to utilize your master classes, and then no matter what their location, study with you is a real blessing. And now
Yeah.
you're about to embark on this new project. What is the Dave Frank School of Jazz?
Okay, so first of all, there's a lot of people who are doing and have done what I've done. There's a lot of great teachers online who are teaching online. Some of the greatest jazz musicians are teaching online and have made tremendous master classes. There's wonderful portals online where they have many, infinite number of classes that you can study. So this is definitely a trend in education. So what I've done the last 10 years is to work with people one-on-one on Zoom and Skype and so on. And what I'm doing with the Dave Frank School of Jazz online is I'm going to try to make it the process available to people at a much lower cost. And that would be on like a weekly Zoom meeting. So the concept here is that I want to share the processes that go into people learning how to improvise, how to harmonize, how to do everything that jazz piano and jazz improvisation offers. There's a way to learn that step by step. So that's what my focus is. So I'll be starting this Saturday. We're going to do a couple of free meetings. I just want to kind of get the temperature out there, and I know that a lot of people are interested in it. I have no idea exactly how this is going to come together. I'm improvising myself doing this, but it's within the realm of possibility with group lessons on Zoom, for example. So the idea is to have a weekly hour and a half meeting where I'll get a chance to share some of these processes online. So, for example, maybe it will be about walking bass lines. So I'll show you like the step-by-step process of that. And then there'll be a chance to play, and then I want to do a lot of question and answer with people. Maybe we'll have some guests. It's going to be a weekly meeting of the troops, and it's I know that it's people want to learn, and I hope it works out the way that I'm thinking. So it will be we'll do a free meeting this Saturday, August 5th, 2023, and then maybe do another free meeting, and after that it'll be a subscription thing, nominal price per month, and I'll be doing online classes every week for at least 90 minutes, inviting people to interact, to ask questions, to play for me. I'd love that opportunity to share feedback with people from all over the world at all different levels. We're going to see how this plays out. I think there are a lot of questions going into it about how it will be organized, but I think it's time for the clock is ticking for all of us. I think it's time that for me personally, I tried to reach as many people as I could.
And for people who wanted to check it out, where do they go? What is the address?
Okay, so all right, so it's 2 to 3:30 p.m. New York time, Eastern Standard Time, and it's on Zoom. The address is 579-664-6371. There's no password needed. 579-664-6371. I'm just gonna be there hanging out, and we'll greet everybody that comes, and I'll start sharing what it is that I can share, and we're gonna let it expand and grow as it grows, or not.
And you mentioned a nominal fee for subscription. What are you thinking of for that?
Thinking of maybe $30 a month for 4 90-minute lessons. That's the plan I'm going into. I'm researching a lot of this, and this way, there are people that can't afford a regular private lesson, but I think this will make it a lot more affordable, and that's the general concept going in. And again, I'll see how it works as I get started. I'm just going to jump in the water and see what happens.
Now, over the years, you've worked with a lot of students, obviously, a lot of piano students. Is there any commonality in what students want to learn,
Absolutely.
and what would that be?
Okay, so there is a general. It's changing over time, but there is a general worldwide level where a lot of musicians and pianists have had pianistic training. So they've studied classically, let's say, or they studied pop music or whatever, and they've studied how to read music. So maybe they've studied with a neighborhood piano teacher or a classical piano teacher of renown or whatever. And so a lot of people have piano skills and have technique on the piano, but there's a large percentage of people that haven't had the step-by-step improv training. So one whole very common group of students are students that can play and have had years of study, maybe in many cases, but haven't yet found the step-by-step approach to learning how to improvise. So with jazz piano, you're looking at technique, you're looking at understanding the harmony of jazz, a la Bill Evans, a la Lenny Tristano, the great voicings, and to put all of these subjects in a very learnable, step-by-step approach, again, is my focus. So there are people that can play that have never really had a jazz training, so they want to start the improv journey for themselves. That's very common, especially in different parts of the world. But so the years go on, there are more people that can play jazz now too, because the teaching has expanded and because the jazz world has expanded. So my approach working with them is to give them two things. One is the tools they need in order to improvise it, meaning the musical elements. So for pianists, you need to understand particular voicings. You need to understand different fingerings to use in the right hand. You need to understand how to use chord scales and arpeggios and things like this. Nuts and bolts. That's what I call musical elements. And the other side of the coin is that you need to know how to make music out of those elements. So once you understand the theory and technique, then there are certain improv concepts that you can apply to those materials to create music. And that's more about phrasing and how you connect phrases and how you say what you want to say and how you express your own particular vision of music and life. So it's a combination of giving, sharing with people concepts of improvisation and also elements of music, elements of jazz that they need. So this is the recipe that goes together. So if you have the elements and you have the way to practice, day by day in order to achieve what you want to achieve, and you have the musical concepts to understand how to create music from the elements of improvisation, then that is the recipe to get you to play. And it's almost like when we were in high school, we used to go in the chemistry class and try to get a beaker to blow up. And so you had to know the right combinations of this and that and the other thing. And if you did and you put all the right combinations in the beaker, it would automatically blow up. This is how I see jazz teaching. You have to have the elements and the concepts and the rhythm and the feel. There's certain things that can be provided from a teacher, and then your creativity will automatically explode. That's been my experience studying with the masters and in teaching over the years. So it's something that can happen for everybody, and that's the main message I want to get through. Is that if you're interested in learning how to be a participant in jazz, that you absolutely can do it. There are ways to learn. Reach out, find a teacher, study online. There's so much online to study, and get involved in the process of jazz education and developing your own unique voice. And it's a lifelong journey. At the age of 60, almost 7, I improvise on the same tunes as I was improvising on my bar mitzvah. And that's what Lenny and Charlie and other people were able to show me is how to just be able to sit and improvise, man. You can do it the rest of your life. It's so fulfilling. It's so much fun, and it's available to everybody. That's my major message. Now a word from Nestle's.
Sorry about that. For the school, we're not only talking about pianists, we're talking about anybody who wants to improvise.
Yes, it's going to be teaching improvisation. There are central concepts of improvisation and central musical elements, whether you're playing piano or not. Lenny used to teach, and Lenny and Charlie used to teach all instruments. So when I would go for a lesson with Lenny, I might be after a drum student or a vocal student. And so there are general concepts to learn improvisation that are cut across all instruments. But of course, my own particular madness is just jazz piano, so I'll be focusing a lot on that. But it'll to be seen how this all shakes out in terms of maybe there'll be different groups for different instrumentalists or people at different levels. I'm not sure yet.
And once again, the first meeting is on Saturday. I've got the number on the screen here on Zoom. What time is it again?
2:00 New York time, Eastern Standard Time, 2 to 3:30, and you can just come to hang out on Zoom, and it's just going to be what we call a jazz free for all. That's free for all of you.
Okay.
And we'll take it from there. I just want to take a moment to thank you, Bret, because you and I have been associated very closely for a number of years, and I know what you've done for jazz, and how an amazing educator, and how much you've done for the art form, and how committed to it you are, and the achievement of the jazz video guy is just amazing. And anybody that doesn't know about it, uh, uh, Bret has compiled the most incredible, inclusive, complete archive of jazz, and has how many videos now altogether?
2,300.
2,300 videos. And Bret is not just putting up like Jeff Goldblum trio. He's putting up the cream of the cream. And so, Jazz Video Guy, sorry, Jeff, Jazz Video Guy on YouTube, you can saturate yourself with the greatest jazz, and it's thanks to Bret. And Bret has also helped me personally, and many other jazz musicians and educators. So thank you, Bret, for all you've done.
Well, thank you for your kind words.
Sure.
It's my mission to keep jazz visible, and working with you has been an important part of that.
Sure.
Past 8 or 9 years. Well, I really look forward to seeing what happens with this. I know that you have been a prime mover in recent times with jazz education online, and I'm not going to be surprised if this thing blows up.
We'll see what happens. You never know when you put something out there, as you know, Bret. It's a one-way street. You put out what you are passionate in sharing, and whatever comes back comes back.
Well,
and our job as educators and citizens, world citizens, is to share the good stuff. And so many people have done it over the years. Barry Harris and Billy Taylor, and think of the great figures we've had in jazz that have been able to spread the jazz gospel. And we're all indebted to all of them. And I just encourage anybody who's interested in learning how to improvise, go for it, and I think you'll have the time of your life.
Thank you very much, Dave. We'll look
Thank you, buddy.
Saturday.
Blessings and keep swinging, pal. Always love to see you.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Ciao.